Well, hi there. It's been a while. It's been a real long while. And I never intended for it to be this long, like I truly didn't. But yet, at least this time, I was absent for good reasons. I've had a lot going on. And at the same time, I've had the unfortunate situation where some of my virtual staff hasn't quite worked out and they've been having more personal problems going on, which added to my workload. But overall, even though the last episode I put up here was, I believe, towards the end of March, now beginning of May when I'm recording this, I've been busy in a good way for the most part. Like when I look back, I'm like, yes, I almost did a podcast, but for a good reason. Like not because I've been bogged down with just non exciting things, but I've been doing a lot of things. So I thought that maybe before I actually delve into that regularly scheduled program of talking about marketing campaigns, that maybe we would just do a little bit of a chatty episode and I can tell you everything that sort of unfolded in the last 6 to 7 weeks since, well, technically since I recorded an episode because I was ahead a little bit there. For a small blip, I was actually ahead in recording. So why don't we have a little chatty episode? They tell you everything that's going on. And then we will return to our regular scheduled program with me recording the marketing campaign episodes. Building a real estate portfolio is as much about buying properties as being a de facto entrepreneur. I'm Karina Ufinger. I'm a multi-property investor, rental management company CEO, and also a landlord coach. I'm going to show you the systems and knowledge you need to thrive as a real estate entrepreneur. From your first property purchase to building a portfolio of passive income where you work less than 5 hours a week, you'll learn the essential information and skills to build a profitable portfolio and live the life you truly want. Whether you're well on your journey or just starting out, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Landlord Chick Podcast. So usually when I'm gone from here, I can honestly say when I've been gone from here as long as I have previously, it's really never been for a good reason. In 2022, I did have a lot of personal stuff going on that was not very good. And it's not really pertinent to this podcast, but just for, I guess, to understand that I'm a person behind this podcast. Last year was a real struggle because we had my mother get diagnosed with dementia, and unfortunately it wasn't like the beginning stages of dementia. Like by the time anything was actually done about it with COVID and everything, we were so far gone, or she was so far gone, that there just wasn't anything that could be done, even in holistic medicine or homeopathic medicine, to do anything. And because of that, last year was really difficult. So when I was gone last year, it was more because I was trying to wrap my head around all of this. Now, the past 7 weeks I've been gone, it's been nothing related to any of that. And everything's been actually good. So what the heck have I been doing for 7 weeks if I haven't been here chatting your ears off about random real estate stuff? Well, I've been working on my own real estate stuff. So I'm going to go through some projects that I've been working on the past couple weeks. And this is sort of just to tell you about what I've been doing with myself in real estate. You guys all know I wear multiple hats, not just in the sense of I'm an investor, but I'm a property manager. I'm a realtor. On top of being all of those three things, I am also the chairman of a state organization for rental investors. And on top of that, I'm an instructor. So I teach. I teach landlords. I teach about investing. And of course, I have this podcast and so many other things that I do where it's I don't know what it was, but something, looking back, something shifted where it's not only did these things start to happen where I had opportunities coming in, but also I got a little bit serious about some stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is just kind of go through each areas and kind of share the updates on what I've been working on. So first, I've been working on creating an all-encompassing rental investor education course. Now, for those of you who are like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. Like, I know a lot of you are like, man, I really wish you had courses online, so on and so forth. I want to explain a couple things. First off, the courses being ready, like video, like I'm talking about like starting to record them towards the middle of 2024, maybe having the whole academy up online in 2025. But yet the academy would technically be through the organization Wisconsin Real Estate Investors that I'm chairman of, which was formerly called Wisconsin Apartment Association. So I'm doing this, I'm creating all of this content through that organization. And yes, there is going to be compensation because obviously this is a ton of work. Like, it doesn't matter if you're creating this for an organization or if you're creating this to put on Udemy or what other, I don't know if that still exists anymore because it's been a while, but whatever other like online course platforms exist, like there's a lot of work that goes into this. There's a lot of time, there's a lot of materials. But so I've been drafting this outline and I couldn't believe it when the outline for this academy had 48 sections in it. 48, 4-8. I was shocked. But then when I looked at it, I'm like, well, I really just did create an outline for an all-encompassing rental academy that will teach you basically from start to finish everything. So it covers mentality, it covers finding properties, it covers networking, it covers like 12 different types of financing. It goes over tenant relations and forms and leasing and notices, delinquency, security deposits. I mean, the list goes on and on. And then, of course, because I'm making it specifically for Wisconsin, there's a couple sections that are just teaching you about Wisconsin law. So this thing is huge. So I have this outline created, but then I've also been working on creating some in-person classes that I will be teaching. So I'm going to be doing most of this again through that organization I just mentioned, WAA, or now since we changed our name, Wisconsin Real Estate Investors. I'm going to be teaching these in person mostly through that. These will be open to the public. So anytime that I am scheduled to speak at any of these, if I'm going to be the instructor, I plan on posting on Instagram and Facebook ahead of time, as well as on Bigger Pockets as well. So if you do happen to be a Wisconsin investor, even if you don't normally are in like Southeast Wisconsin, you know, I could easily find myself possibly teaching this in Oshkosh or in Green Bay or like over in Marinette or Wausau. Like we have a bunch of different locals. So, and these courses that I'm creating, so here's kind of an interesting story with this. So this whole entire program is called Rental Housing Resources. And the whole program was originally created by my dad in 1998. Now, my dad was actually chairman of the state organization a long time before I was, and he actually flip-flopped between president and vice president with this one other gentleman for a while, because if you've ever been a part of a large organization, you kind of know like leadership is hard to come by. Not everyone is really jumping to get a leadership position, especially when it is volunteer. So my dad like flip-flopped back and forth with this one guy where they took turns. But one of the things that my dad created was this all-encompassing program called Rental Housing Resources. And it was in-person teaching that was taught at the local level for locals part of this organization. And it was teaching you the basics of being a rental investor. So they're teaching you about screening, putting out notices. They're teaching you about fair housing, items like that. And I remember back in the day when I was 16, because PowerPoints were really new then, a lot of adults didn't have experience with PowerPoints or anything. I remember my dad asking me if he bought me, I think it was like a gift certificate for the movie theater, like a $50 gift certificate for the movie theater, that if I bought that, if he bought me that, if I would create all the PowerPoints for these 8 courses. So it's funny that all of these 8 courses, I technically had a hand in creating back when I was like 16. And now here I've come full circle and I'm actually updating them because there's quite a bit that's happened in like 20 years, not just in like law, but just in the way that we do things and the way we run our properties. So for the past 7 weeks, I've been hardcore into finishing revamping those. I started this project last spring, but I wasn't really I mean, I don't want to say I was procrastinating. I was working on it, but I wasn't dedicating like every single hour of every single day for like a certain number of weeks to it, or I wasn't even dedicating a certain number of hours each week. But recently I got more on the schedule of, okay, I'm working on this one, I'm finishing it this week no matter what, and then moving on through them. So, and part of updating these is not only like the content, so like the text, but it also is updating them from 90s clip art PowerPoints to a more modern presentation. So it involves basically taking all of this stuff and putting it over into Canva, which is where I create my presentations nowadays. Great program, by the way, Canva, canva.com. It's amazing. It's like Publisher, but better, like infinitely better than Publisher. And you can actually use it for free. You don't have to have an account or anything. You can make a pro account, which I actually really enjoy having for a couple of reasons. First, I can share project designs with people very easily. They can collaborate with them. But then also I have a lot more access to more templates and more photos that are preloaded in Canva versus kind of like having to create my own or settle for something. But anyway, so I've been working on updating these 90s PowerPoints over into Canva, something modern. And really this has been a large chunk of my time the past couple weeks. I also was teaching 3 classes here in April, which one of them is on creative financing. And normally when I teach that, it's a 4-hour course. So when I get hired to teach that, and I do get hired to teach it because it is 4 hours, it's 4 hours. But they wanted me to do it for just 1 hour and just a brief blurb. I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe that won't be too bad. Now I have to admit, I think one of the hardest things to do is to trim down an existing presentation to make it fit a time frame. Like taking something that's supposed to be 3 hours or 4 hours and cutting it down to 1 hour, for me seems to be infinitely harder than just creating a new presentation from scratch. Now, I'm not saying time-wise it makes sense to create one from scratch more. It definitely doesn't, but just the mentality and like the aspect of making things flow and putting it together again, it was much harder to do when I was taking this 4-hour one and trimming it down to 1 hour. Because I had to cut out a lot of chunks of it. There were 3 sections that just didn't get talked about at all because there just wasn't time. And then there were 2 other presentations that I was creating completely from scratch. And one of them was actually kind of relatively last minute. I was asked like about 10 to 14 days before it if I could fill a gap that came up in the schedule. So I've been doing a lot of PowerPoint creation, a lot of teaching, which I love. One thing I've recently discovered the past like 6 weeks or so is I absolutely love teaching. Like I do. Not that I would ever like become a teacher, but I like instructing. I like being an instructor. So I'm really excited to have these in-person classes kind of start to kick up and be able to do that more in person and instruct people on how to be a landlord, because in all of these courses we get very in depth because they're like 2-hour courses on each topic. So they're definitely in depth. So that's one aspect of what I've been doing. Another part of what I've been doing is getting back to this organization again. So Wisconsin Real Estate Investors, it still doesn't roll off the tongue very easily. It's not going to for a while. But with that organization, we started to do a rebrand. See, previously we were called the Wisconsin Apartment Association, and that's basically the name it's had since its inception in '73. Well, the meaning of the word apartment has shifted dramatically since what it was in the '70s to today. A lot of people consider apartments something that's like a 10-unit, a 12-unit building. A lot of people nowadays don't look at their duplex as an apartment. And if you're a person who is a landlord of single-family homes, you certainly don't look at your single-family home as an apartment. So there was that reason for wanting to kind of shift the name. But then also, we really did want to start encompassing other areas of real estate investing, because no longer does anybody really follow just one track and do that. And honestly, when this organization was created, like the idea of flipping didn't quite exist as it does today. Short-term rentals certainly didn't exist back then. College housing was definitely not what it is nowadays. They're, boarding houses, again, not really what they are as they are today. So there's a lot of things that have evolved, and there's a lot of aspects to real estate where nobody just says, I'm going to be a landlord, and that's the only thing I'm going to do in real estate for the next 20 years. People in my generation and younger, we're sort of like hodgepodging. We're kind of like, we're honestly having multiple streams of income coming in within real estate, so that when one slacks off, there's another one that can kind of pick up the slack. So as part of rebranding and redoing this, there's been a lot of work behind the scenes about, and kind of boring stuff. It's boring to figure out what the new mission is of the organization, changing the bylaws and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to have it all rolled out for our big spring conference. So twice a year we do in-person conferences, and I really wanted to have it rolled out and ready for spring. So that took up a lot of my time the last 7 weeks as well. And as if that wasn't enough, seriously, like as if that wasn't enough, at this exact time, I also had my virtual assistant start to have personal issues that bled into her professional work life with me. And the issue with that, of course, is that when that happens, it makes me busier, because then I am picking up the slack. And a lot of times it seemed like I was picking up the slack in the most inconvenient ways. Not that it's ever convenient, but I also kind of had realized that some stuff had kind of been, unfortunately, she'd been working for me for over a year, and there was this already established level of trust. But then when I got into everything, I kind of saw that, oh, wow, okay, stuff really hasn't been getting done. So I had some back work to do as well. And so I really did get bogged down with that for a while, getting everything caught up on that side of it. And of course, on top of it, I'm still doing all of my day-to-day work. So as, the owner of the company and having my own investments, things like that, like I've just had a lot going on with having to deal with kind of like both sides of it right now at this moment. And then I've also been working with a lot of clients about possibly offloading properties in their portfolio, getting a lot of traction with people who want to make purchases and kind of try and find rental properties for them in a market where it's relatively tough. And it is tough right now. And that's part of the reason why we've got that episode coming up on marketing campaigns and finding your own deals and stuff like that. Because me as a realtor, I have 5 people that want to buy right now. And if there is anything that ever gets listed on the MLS, it's like the same 5 people fighting over the piece of that puzzle. Like that little piece of pie, we're all fighting over the same piece, because there's really not that much out there. And I keep my eyes on the off-market stuff, but there's not a lot of off-market traction necessarily at the same time though either. So I've been putting a lot more effort into constantly checking the MLS, like more than I do normally, because usually if something does pop now, we're still in this situation where it doesn't last long. So I really want to be ahead of the curve and like making sure I'm constantly checking up on the MLS and being aware of what's new so I can jump on it right away. The other thing that I've been working on is I've been sort of rehashing or re-educating myself on, honestly, financing, creative financing and financing in general, not just because I taught that course, but because this year I know how I want to make things happen, and it's going to be through using creative financing, whether it be hard money lending, or maybe like seller financing, something like that. So I've been sort of re-educating myself on what all of those mean at a very deep and true level. Like when I'm creating a presentation to teach other people, like if level 3 is as deep as you could possibly go, like if I'm giving like a 2-hour course on something, I go to like level 2. But if I'm doing it like for myself and I'm learning, I'm going to level 3, like I'm going really, really deep with this. So I've been really working on refamiliarizing myself with all of the ins and outs, the nuances of the various types of creative financing so that I can move forward this year and start to make some moves as well. Now, I know I just said the market's pretty busy, so on and so forth. What I'm thinking for making moves is I might get into flipping a little bit this year, but I also might transition into buying single family homes for rentals. And I know some of you who are longtime listeners will be like, wait, what? You said you didn't like them. Yes, that's true. Generally, I don't. If ever given the choice, I'm going to prefer to buy, honestly, a triplex, something like that, not even necessarily a duplex. But as I said, I think in the one before this, we have to adapt to what opportunities exist or what we're able to get our hands on. Right now, I feel like it's easier to still get your hands on a single family home. So I'm learning about doing rent to owns. I'm learning about owning single family homes as rentals. You might think, oh, well, isn't it exactly the same? It's like, yeah, I mean, it is mostly the same, but the way you approach them is a little bit different because you have the chance of having that tenant stay on much, much longer than you would with a duplex or an apartment, certainly. So I have to sort of refamiliarize myself with what it's like to rent to that sort of tenant, one who is potentially going to be renting your place for 6-7 years, how you would keep up with it, so on and so forth. Now, this isn't a permanent shift. This isn't like, okay, now I'm going to do this. No, this is a shift that's in response to what I see with the market, where it is getting kind of hard to get duplexes and triplexes. So maybe I should be looking at doing single family homes, not exclusively, but that way, if I just feel like I'm not getting any traction with my duplexes, triplexes, so on and so forth, I can maybe just look at the single family homes and go, okay, you know what? I can fix that one up and I can make it a good rental. You know, just having different tools in my tool belt. So I'm relearning about that. The other thing that I'm doing, and actually I'm not technically doing it yet, I have yet to buy the course, but I'm working on getting my broker's license. So in the state of Wisconsin, you have a broker's license and then you have a sales agent license. Now, a sales agent license allows you to buy and sell real estate, but only under the guidance of a broker. If you've been with me for over 2 years, you'll likely remember my little story from what happened back in August of 2021. I had a broker with my company. It was a very uneven relationship in regards to power because I owned the company, but she had the broker's license and she was an employee. Well, she ended up walking out one day. Everything had to get reshuffled in my company. I thought I was going to be shutting down, but I had an acquaintance out of nowhere basically stick their neck out for me and make a call to get me a broker. So anyway, now that I've been working under that broker for 2 years, I now have the ability to buy my course and to work towards getting my broker's license so that I'm not necessarily beholden to somebody else in order to keep my company running. You know, right now I'm lucky. I have a very good relationship with my broker. It's not an uneven relationship because he's not even involved with my company. He just oversees it as the broker, but he's not an employee, nothing like that. But I have a really good relationship with him. So for me, this is just like that added security that where, you know, obviously, God forbid something happens to my broker in a physical way, I can still operate because I have my own broker's license. So over the next 10 weeks, I'm going to buy that course. I'm actually going to buy it tomorrow. And then the next 10 weeks is what I've allotted myself for studying. And then I'm going to take my test. I wrote down in my handy dandy remarkable tablet when I was going to take the broker's course exam, but I've actually committed to an exam date as well in my head. You can't actually sign up for it until you get your certificate from taking the course, but I at least have committed in my head that, okay, that's when I'm taking my broker's license. So really, in a nutshell, that's what's been going on, people. Like, you can see there's a lot that's been going on and not a lot of time for, this. Now, I love doing this. I love doing this. I love that you guys keep coming back for it. It really, really made me smile when I came on here and I saw that my last episode. So last time I was in here was like, I'd say about 5 weeks ago, because I thought I was going to start recording, but then like I got interrupted and I never came back. But when I was in here, the last episode where we talked about what to do in 2023, the last time I was in here, that episode had about 21 plays. And now when I came back in, I was like, oh my God, because it has over 200 plays. I'm like, holy cow. So I'm really grateful for you guys coming back and sticking around. And if you're new here and you're kind of wondering why it dropped off, I've said all of this, but then I also want to make sure you guys understand I really am a one-woman show with this. I don't hire out any editor. There's obviously no co-host with me, and I don't even really do guests, which at this point, honestly, I'm kind of glad I don't do guests, because I feel like my life would have been that much more hectic if I had in my calendar, guests that were scheduled to come on and record. It's like, I think I honestly would have lost my mind. I don't know how I didn't the last 7 weeks. Like, I really don't know how I didn't lose my mind, but that really, I think, would have made me lose my mind. But this is entirely like a one-woman show. I create the content myself. I make a list. I have a list that I'm kind of working off of podcast topics. I write blogs that go up on Bigger Pockets, and then they get posted, I think, one other place. And then, like, I'll use those blogs to record the podcasts. And, like, this is absolutely, like, a labor of love for me. So it means even more to me when you guys stick around, knowing that sometimes the uploads can be a little inconsistent. And sometimes they just don't come for a little bit. But you know what? I'm so glad you guys have stuck with me through this. I enjoy every single week. I enjoy your messages. I love your messages. Every time you guys contact me over on Instagram, or a couple of you have actually found me on Bigger Pockets. I really, really appreciate interacting with you guys. I love your questions. I love your follow-up, and I love your feedback. I really do. I absolutely love getting messages from you guys that say you really enjoyed that last episode, or it had perfect timing because you were going through that situation. Like, when I did the cockroach episode, which was like back in, I want to say February or January, I couldn't believe how many people messaged me and were like, I'm so glad you covered that, because there's not a lot of material out there. And I felt like I was a dirty landlord because I was dealing with cockroaches. So thank you for getting rid of that stigma. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like, it's just something that I'm like, you know what, we should talk about this. I've dealt with it. I was actively dealing with it at the time with a property management thing. So I'm like, let's just do it. Let's just talk about this. Let's be open with it. So I'm so glad you guys are enjoying the sort of conversations that you won't find on any other podcast, because they really don't want to tell you about those things. And one of the things I have scheduled for this year, and yes, I say this year very vaguely, but one of the topics I have scheduled for this year is just a recap of my absolute horror stories. Like, what are the worst experiences that I've had in real estate, and what lessons have I learned? And I'm not saying, and of course, this is not meant to be one of those episodes where like, this is why you don't get into real estate. Because obviously I'm hoping everyone listening to this is thinking about getting into real estate, or you are in real estate. But I think these episodes are really cool when they're run this way, because you get a variety of topics and you get actual lessons learned. And I'm not just like sitting here tooting my own horn or reading off some boring stuff about how you handle a move out, or how you handle a tenant dispute, or anything like that. Like, there's this tangible problem. You see the steps, you see the resolution, and it's handled. And that's what I think is kind of exciting about telling you guys my stories, is having it be real life practical experience where I can say I've been through this and I've handled this and this is how I've approached it. So, all right, this is a really, really chatty update. Like, we're at 26 minutes already, and I never really intended it to be 26 minutes. Like, when I said chatty update, I thought we would be like maybe 17 minutes, maybe on the max side. I really didn't think we would go this long. But we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled program. I'm going to give my voice a little bit of break, and then I'm actually going to truly start recording the marketing campaign videos. Podcast. We're going to do this. See, I got videos on my mind because I talked about creating that online academy, all those courses online. You see where my mind's been. All right, guys. I hope you have been fantastic while I've been gone. I hope you've been movers and shakers. I hope you've been making moves, even if they're just small moves. You're moving closer and closer to that goal. and I will see you next week.